Before we start, I wanted to remind you that I'm part of a free virtual event called Burn Beautiful, talking about the minimum effective day, giving practical how-to tools for making your days more sustainable without the guilt. It's live now, and you have until July 7th to catch it. And the whole event is free. Jump in at positivelyproductive.com/beautiful26.
The story that we're telling ourselves is that we need to deserve rest. No, we need to come from a place of rest. We don't work to rest. We rest so that we can do the best possible work. So if you are that overachiever, this should be a no-brainer for you if you want to make an impact. If you want to be able to put in the work, rest is key.
You're listening to the Positively Living Podcast. I'm your host, Lisa Zawrotny, founder of Positively Productive Systems and a productivity coach certified in positive psychology and stress management. Join me as we explore ways to live a more proactive, positive life with episodes on productivity, self-awareness, mindset, entrepreneur life, habits and systems, simplicity, fun, and more. I understand overwhelm personally as a multi-passionate entrepreneur, wife and mom to kids and cats, and as a caregiver. I'm here to help you choose what's right for you so you can do less, live more, and breathe easier. Sound good? Let's get to it. Welcome to the Positively Living Podcast. I'm your host, Lisa, and today I'm revisiting a conversation that has only gotten more relevant since it first aired. My guest, Gary Ware, founder of Breakthrough Play, is a keynote speaker, certified coach, and author of Playful Rebellion. Gary uses applied improvisation and other playful methods to help people unlock creativity, confidence, and better communication. And his perspective on rest and play is one I know you will love. We've been spending the last several weeks looking at energy, what drains it, how to manage it, and how to calm your nervous system when it gets overwhelmed. And most recently, why fun and play belong in a productive life. That was episode 321. Gary's conversation connects beautifully to these. He explains what's actually happening in your body when rest is missing and introduces 3 distinct types of rest that go well beyond the usual just get more sleep advice. You'll appreciate those options. Here's what I find so compelling about this topic. Rest and play aren't new ideas. We knew how to do these when we were kids, instinctively. But somewhere along the way, we got the message that those things were for other seasons of life. Gary makes the case that we were right the first time. I love that. I've explored related pieces of this in episode 172, Why the Simple Act of Pausing Will Make You More Productive, and episode 249, 5 Energizing Habits to Make You More Productive. If you like this conversation, you'll want to check those out too. Now, let's revisit this timely conversation with Gary. Welcome, Gary Ware, to the Positively Living Podcast. I am really excited about our conversation today.
Me as well. Oh my gosh. Let's just dive in.
Yes. Well, before we get into the topic of the day, I would love it if you'd share a bit about who you are and who you help and what makes you light up.
All right. Yes. So my name is Gary Ware, pronouns he, him. I run a company called Breakthrough Play, where it's my mission to help individuals use the power of play and other playful methods to help them be more confident, better communicators, more creative, and at the end of the day, just really enjoy their life.
That just sounds so good, doesn't it? I mean,
right? Easier said than done. Let's just be honest.
Yeah, 100%. But just that idea, you're like, yes, I want to go to there. That sounds really, really good. Let's do this.
Yes.
And I know that engaging in play, right? And helping people find that play and just having that fun, even every single conversation we've had, right? I know that that's what lights you up.
Yes.
And that is definitely what lights me up as well. And as you know, we've had a lot of the greats who love to talk about play, Jeff Harry and Mike Montague, and oh my goodness, Lauren Yee, so many people who are about this. And I love the perspective that you're coming from. I love that you have a book out, that's talking about one of the details that we're talking about today that we're going to dig into a bit more that's in the book. And I'm like, thank you for bringing this up. So let's start, of course, with the concept of play and your background on it and what it really means and what we think it means. Maybe it doesn't.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. Again, you've had all these amazing people talk about play. And if you're listening and you haven't listened to that episode, go find it, go listen to it. So much wisdom there. As an improviser, I like to build upon and add to work that's already done. So, play is something that is done. You're non-coerced. It's something that you would, do regardless of the outcome. It's being in that space. And at the end of the day, it brings you pleasure. When we are in this play-like state, it is a very vulnerable state to be in because we're so present. Animals play, believe it or not. Animals in the wild play, even though by them playing, they could be attacked at any moment. They see the benefits of doing that. Us as adults, I think because when we play and we know like how vulnerable it can be, a mentor of mine said, play brings out someone's unbounded true nature. And if someone were to unpack that and why they, don't play, maybe it has to go back when they were a kid and they were like truly and freely playing and maybe they got teased or something like that. But as adults, we tend to, set that aside. It's not a priority. And as a result, we suffer. We have prolonged stress and we have all these things. But here's the thing. We can't play in a stress state, even though play relieves stress. It's this sort of like double-edged sword. As you mentioned, yes, in my book, I talk about play and playfulness and how because of our conditioning, we need to rebel. And that's why it's called the Playful Rebellion. We need to rebel against that conditioning, rebel against the status quo, rebel against what we thought we knew to be true as adults so that we can, again, get back to neutral.
I know how much fun play is, but also effective it is. I know how effective play is. And I know you know it because, you're out there, to quote Jeff Harry, preach, right? You are like,
yes.
You're preaching this. But what is it? What is it that we are hiding from? What is it that we're telling ourselves, the stories that we're telling ourselves that are keeping us from play? I mean, I'm thinking about things like, well, then that's an indicator that you're goofing off, right? Or that you're not getting your work done, or that you're not taking the things you're supposed to take seriously. Well, what else have you heard? What's our issue?
That is just for kids. Grow up, be an adult. And part of being an adult means you need to be super serious.
Sorry, I'm laughing at that, but yeah. When you say it out loud like that, you're like, really? Come on.
Come on. Yeah, I agree. Let's take the work serious. And I like to use this example. Say you need to get surgery and you have a surgeon. And of course, you want that surgeon to do a great job and take his job seriously because, again, your life is in his hands. Mm-hmm. However, do you want him to be ultra stressed and ultra tense where there's a chance he's going to sort of cut the wrong artery or something like that? Or do you want him loosey-goosey where he's focused and relaxed, where he can get in and get into a state of flow? Which one do you want? Matter of fact, people in operating rooms, what they do before they go into surgery, they actually have a very sort of playful ritual that they do. They go through and then they sort of introduce themselves and, they talk about their day and you think come on, get down to business, y'all. But what they're doing is they're creating psychological safety. They're creating this equal playing field. And by doing that, mistakes during surgery and things like that has dropped tremendously because it makes everything neutral. Everyone has this level of psychological safety where they feel like they can speak up. Therefore, people that are nurses or whatever that may not have the status of the surgeon or the doctor, if they see something, they feel more inclined to say something. So there has to be this harmony. But we interpreted this situation and it got very extreme. And then now, because we went to the opposite extreme, we're not playing at all. And we are suffering as a result of this.
Yeah. And I think as a result of the sort of habit, if you will, of the pendulum swinging and us getting used to that not being acceptable, it creates even more hesitancy, which is why I love talking about it. The way that I describe the situation to people in terms of what I do is I take what I do very seriously, but I do not take myself seriously. And I think that respects what I'm doing, but also allows me to be so incredibly imperfect. And when you do that, you release so much of the pressure. And I think that build of pressure is what we're dealing with constantly in our work and in our home lives, and wanting to be the best parents and the best people and the best of the best. Yes, strive for the best, but allow yourself to be human.
Agreed. Because when you put that pressure on yourself, what you're doing is you're activating the sympathetic nervous system in the brain. The sympathetic nervous system is the fight, flight, or freeze, which now we're producing cortisol, now we're producing adrenaline. And its original design was to get you out of an immediate danger that is happening right now. So that once the stressor is done, boom, you can release that. Parasympathetic nervous system kicks in. That's rest and digest. The harmony comes back in. However, those stressors are not physical. They're not immediate. They
Right.
stay there. It's prolonged. And then as a result, what's happening in your brain is you're losing access to the prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain that is all about the creativity. That's all about being empathetic and things like that. And that's what we need, especially entrepreneurs, that are trying to be impactful and they have this amazing idea and, maybe you're being scrappy and you're by yourself. That extra stress that you're putting on yourself is not allowing you the ability to think on your feet, to be creative.
Feeling scattered or stuck? When your mind is full, it's hard to focus on what truly matters. That's where the guided mind sweep comes in. A short, mindfulness-style practice designed to help you release mental clutter, reduce stress, and create space for what's next. It's free, easy to do anytime, and listeners tell me it's a game changer for refocusing fast. You can find the guided mind sweep package for free at positivelyproductive.com/PLP sweep. Right. You're missing all the goodness that can come from that creativity of troubleshooting, innovating, coming at something from a different direction when you feel stuck. It's that fluidity that allows the flexibility and the innovation that we need to make huge strides.
Yeah. And if I can add one thing, I know this is going to happen. This is the devil's advocate where someone says, but you don't get it, Gary. I've gotten this far. And now we are essentially sort of hijacking ourselves and we have this story that we're telling ourselves that we deem to be true. And you're right. By having that voice in the back of your head that's like, you need to be serious and whatnot. Yeah, maybe it's gotten you this far, but is it what you need to get you to the next level? And on top of that, do you want to be right or do you want to be happy?
Oh my God, there's so much goodness in what you just said. First of all, do you want to be right or do you want to be happy? That reminds me of someone, oh my goodness, Stuart. He facilitated some caregiver groups that I was part of. And it was one of those, you realize that you're used to thinking and acting a certain way. And you know what your reality is and you're certain of it. And so you're moving along with it. And as caregivers, we do that, especially when we're dealing, in my case, it was with caring for my mom with Alzheimer's. And he said, do you want to be right or do you want to be, content and low stress and sane, basically, is what he was saying, And when he said that, I was like, it changed my entire perspective. Also, what you're describing it reminds me, actually, I'm thinking of one client in particular who said, listen, I've powered through for years and years and I've been very successful, but at what cost? At the cost
Great.
of my family, at the cost of my contentedness, at the cost of what is it that I really want to be doing? And am I maximizing my strengths? And I'm like, I'm so excited to work with you. This is awesome. I respect that question so much because yes, you can use a hammer for a lot of jobs, but eventually it's not going to work. You can power through, but at what cost? And it reminds me of the book, What Got You Here Won't Get You There. That's what you're saying, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I love that. Okay. So shifting from here, that's a really great baseline for us in terms of how this connects to our stress and our creativity. The other thing that you bring up in your book, which I love, it's one of my favorite topics, and it shifts right into sort of the topic of the day, is energy management.
Yes, because we all know energy is everything. Everything is energy. So we need to manage that.
So with energy management, and a little spoiler alert, I'm going to bring this up. Okay, rest. Rest was the thing that you brought up. I love that we talk about play. I know how important it is. You have just laid out why. But rest, Yeah, that's so important that that gets in there because we talk about rest and play. And I want to talk about, what they are essentially. We've talked about play now, but the rest part of it, where they overlap and how this fits into energy management.
So the first thing is just like what you said, we look at rest as in, sleep or whatever the case may be. And yes, if all you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. But when it comes to energy management, it's more than that. Like we need to broaden our horizon. And when I learned that, it just blew things open for me. And I was like, oh my gosh, I could see where I was like sort of missing the mark, where I would like, oh wow, I got 8 hours of sleep. And so it's interesting because it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. So I was that guy that was like, I'll rest when I'm dead and hustle and grind and blah, blah, blah. And I sound like a gorilla. But anywho, it will be a self-fulfilling prophecy because I will get that 8 hours of sleep or at least try to. And then I wake up, I'm like, I'm not even rested. See, it doesn't even work for someone like me. Might as well just sleep for 4 hours and more work. And anyway, and I realized that well, you know what? I'm doing it all wrong. I'm not really honoring that. And once I started to realize what's really happening, let's lift the hood and what's really happening and realize that sleep is just one part of the equation. There's other forms of rest that you need to take into consideration and you need to think about what your outcome is. And then now you can look at, this is the type of rest that I need for this situation. So that was a big aha for me. And then, if we had the sound of the angels but here's the thing. My mentor always said, the truth will set you free, but it may piss you off at first. That was the thing that got me really mad where I didn't want to believe it. I wanted to hold on to that story that I didn't need sleep. I didn't need rest. You know what? You don't get it. I have to work. I have to support my family and all these other things. But then just like what you said, at what cost? Am I really present? Yes, Gary, you said there are different types of rest. The one that everyone knows, and there's three, it's macro, micro, and meso. Macro is the big picture. This is like sleep. And what that is, making sure that you're getting sleep. Now, the thing that I tell entrepreneurs and those people that are like, go, 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 that don't, think that they need sleep, I like to meet them where they are and say, all right, you know what? I know everyone's saying you need to get 8 hours of sleep and whatever the case might be. How about you just get better sleep, better quality sleep? If you think that you need to run on 4 hours, how about it be the most luxurious 4 hours of sleep you've had? Because I'm not a betting man, but I like to believe that those overly ambitious types of people are like my 5-year-old son and run red line until they're completely drained and then just pass out. And what that essentially means is before you close your eyes, what are you doing? Are you on devices? Are you doing things that are not allowing you to get into REM sleep? And so that brings me to the question of, do you have a power down ritual?
Yeah, that's such a great question. That's so incredibly important because we're coming at something with an incredible amount of energy. Let's listen, stress, it's a given, right? It's there. And of course, sometimes stress can benefit us and other times it can break us down. And we have to know that distinction. But when that all happens, case in point, before we started recording, I was chatting with my hubby real quick and he was struggling with some folks at work who were making demands of him and breaking his flow. And it was just really, really challenging. That's what we're going to have to deal with. But it was great that he had a chance to just quickly say, hey, I need to rant. And I'm like, yo, here, go for it. Tell me what's up. That's crazy. Just rant. And then he goes, all right, I'm going to go take a lunch break now and take an early lunch. And we're going to just do, and I'm like, great. So it was a transition. Now, if he had just been all fired up and frustrated and then gone in to eat food, that's going to make lunch horrible for him. That's not going to be a true break, right?
Oh, so true. And he is not in the parasympathetic nervous system at that point. He's in the sympathetic nervous system.
Mm-hmm.
And in order to really get that nourishment for the food, you need to get into the rest and digest, which means that you have to sort of throttle down so that your body can receive the nourishment that you are putting into your body.
You know what? I'm loving that you are bringing this up because we have discussed this on the show. So for sleep, Molly McLaughlin and Tanessa Shears both talked about sleep. They talked about these rituals. And then the distinction that we're making here in terms of the stress response, the sympathetic versus parasympathetic. Wendy Hill is talking about that in the episode about our productivity and nutrition and the connection to those two things. It's all connected, right? It's all connected. Okay, so I am loving this idea of where do you first start if you want from the macro standpoint of sleep? And you're like, listen, I got 6 hours to work with, Gary. I don't know what else to tell you. Your response, well, then make it the best possible 6 hours. So whatever you can do to make it the best 6 hours possible.
Yeah. What are the things that you could do? And again, start where you are. Maybe it's you count backwards and say, hey, no devices, at least an hour or so before bedtime. Instead of being on my phone, I'm going to read a book or do nothing.
That's crazy. What are you talking about?
Right. And then have a wind down routine. And it's interesting because with my 5-year-old, we have that. Like, I can't just say, all right, bedtime. He will combust. We have to be like, hey, Garrett, it's going to be bedtime. You have 10 minutes. Enjoy this. And then from there, he knows, all right, cool. After that, we need to pick up our toys. Then we go to the bathroom. Then we brush our teeth. Then we wash our face. And we do our nighttime medicine. Then we read a book. And then he's like, and then he just like falls asleep.
And you are cueing him all along the way. And here's a newsflash. My teen and my tween both need this. So that should tell everyone something really important, which is we all need that.
It doesn't go away just because you're an adult. Transitions are essential.
They truly are. I love that. Okay, so better sleep, transitions, the rituals. You're talking about habit building, all of that good stuff in there.
Start small. So that is that part. Because again, this is the other thing. The story that we're telling ourselves is that we need to deserve rest. No, we need to come from a place of rest. We don't work to rest. We rest so that we can do the best possible work. So if you are that overachiever, this should be a no-brainer for you if you want to make an impact. If you want to be able to put in the work, rest is key. So nonetheless, work with what you have, start small, develop some habits and rituals, and then boom, now we got the macro. The next rest is the micro. This is where most entrepreneurs, especially if you're running your own business, have a challenge with it. And the interesting thing is, I bet you when you first got into your work, it felt like play. Again, it's something that you probably can do for hours and hours and hours. You were thinking about the sort of like the impact. We'll have to come back another time to talk about intrinsic motivation because there's an amazing book called Primed to Perform, and it talks about play, purpose, and potential as an intrinsic motivator to give you more sustainable energy. That's for another time. However, your work probably started as play, but then there probably got to a point where it was not sustainable that you were doing that much work. Now, what needs to happen, again, it just goes back into energy management of you need to be able to look at your day, look at what you got going on, and I put it in my calendar, put little windows of time. I like to use windows instead of blocks. It just seems like is more inviting.
It's more open. Yeah.
More open. Windows of time that are allowing you to have micro rest. So micro rest are the things that are going to rejuvenate you in between the moments where you need to be productive. There's a lot of research that shows that us humans, we are bad predictors of our own energy and our own ability to do things. There's been so many studies where they would ask people like, oh, how long is it going to take you to do that? It's going to do X, Y, Z. Boom. We miscalculated that. And then on top of that, people think that they can be as accurate after 6.5 hours as when they first started. Nope, not the case. So again, we just need to just surrender and realize that we're just bad at understanding what we can do and what we can't do. So there was a study that Microsoft did. They put little EKG caps on their employees. This was during the pandemic. And then they found that their employees that went from meeting to meeting to meeting, by the fourth or fifth meeting, their brain was fried, just completely stressed and fried. And we all know we can't do our best work when you're stressed. Again, goes back to you're in that fight, flight, or freeze. You're being rational. You don't have access to creativity and empathy. However, there are employees that took these micro breaks in between each meeting. They found that their brain was fresh. In some cases, even more so than when they started the day.
Wow. And I mean, all of these things play into our energy. And that study, I love that because that's anecdotally, I think we can tell that we're fried, but this is data backing it up hard.
And so I think, again, do you want to be effective? Do you really want to make an impact?
Right.
Because if you do, you would do the things that are going to help you, be the best version of yourself. However, again, it goes back to the mindset and the things that we say ourselves. A lot of times when we jump into our own business, we have the old sort of mindset of like, oh, I need to trade hours for dollars. No, you don't have to. Let's work smarter, not harder.
Sometimes all you need is someone to help you cut through the chaos and make sense of it all. That's what my clarity call is for. In just 30 minutes, we'll get to the heart of what's blocking you and outline simple, doable steps forward. It's a compassionate, no-pressure, budget-friendly way to get moving in the right direction. Learn more and book your spot for only $55 at positivelyproductive.com/PLPclarity. Yeah, and I think also, too, when we're caring about what we're doing, right? And we're stressing about getting something done. And I can see it in my kids where I'm like, you need to take a break. You need to get a snack. You need to step away because then you'll come back with a fresh mind and you'll be able to tackle it better. No, I have to get it done. It's a knee-jerk response that we have. And for those of you who are rebels, I know who you are, I see you, and you're like, I don't care if it's a window or a block, I'm not scheduling it, then know why you're doing this. Know the overarching movement that you're trying to accomplish here, and know that you need a certain number, and then go ahead and do it some way different. If you have like check boxes and then you're just like checking it off, or you're like setting a timer and asking yourself, am I doing it now? Play with it and find a way. So speaking of which, how long are we talking about with micro breaks? And give us some for instances. What could those look like?
Yes. And so this is where the play can potentially come in. Typically, when people take a micro break, they do something that would not rejuvenate their body. They probably check email. They probably scroll social media. These things aren't helping. Matter of fact, it's actually draining you even more so because you are adding more stress and whatnot, to your brain and to your capacity. I'm saying 5 minutes. 5 minutes is not going to hurt you. And in that 5 minutes, this is where, like, again, choose your own adventure. What do you need? Do you feel like with your husband's situation, maybe you do need to have connection? Let me connect with someone real quick, vent, let that drain. Or maybe you just got off a pretty stressful call and you need to like sort of bounce back up. All right, maybe just walk around. Mm-hmm. Or maybe you need to be like me and I keep a bag of Legos at an arm's reach. And then for me, I set a timer for 5 minutes. I'm not building anything in particular. I'm just, again, using my hands, getting my eyes off the screen into something else. I'm getting very tactile. Or maybe you need to just walk around your office. It could be something, believe it or not, there is, especially if your purpose for doing it is to rejuvenate yourself, why not give yourself 5 minutes and play Candy Crush?
Right. I mean, whatever's fun. I've set a timer for 5 or 10 minutes and I've read a little bit more of a book. It doesn't seem like a long time, but it's something. It takes me into a different world. And I will add this. I love that you're coming from a place of been focused, we've been scrunched, we've been stressed, we've been all the things, and then we're trying to relieve that. But I will also add that this kind of micro break can be very effective when it comes to celebrating a moment too. And I got to give a shout out to my biz bestie, Liz August from Simplify. She and I are on Voxer constantly. And so we've just had, you're there and you're in the flow and you're with your client and you're doing all this wonderful stuff and we will Voxer each other. And we don't give details, because this is client stuff. But what we can say is, I was on fire. I was an awesome coach. And, just celebrating it. And again, but it's taking you out of work. And you're celebrating, you're having fun and maybe doing a happy dance. But, little baby steps here. Yeah, to celebrate something. So that same kind of connection that you're talking about, which can be on WhatsApp or Voxer or in person or whatever, or a text, just tell whoever you can something that you just like kicked butt and took names on, right? That's awesome. I love that. 5 minutes. 5 minutes.
5 minutes. And then again, for those rebels out there, they're like, I don't want to put something on my calendar because I don't want to be beholden to even my own things. All right. What you need to do is you need to create triggers so that your brain and your body know what to do. And so it's a very simple statement. It's an if-then statement or when-then, I think. So when I finish blank, I will blank because it makes me feel blank.
Oh, I like that. You could even write that out if you want. But then again, if you're a rebel, you're like, I'm not writing anything. But simple triggers too, or cues, that's the same idea that we have when we're building habits, right? Okay, could be every time you finish with a client call, you finish the notes first, by the way. That's just my pro tip there. Or, you have AI help you. There are lots of options. But the point is, you finish the task at hand, right? Especially when it comes to, let's say, client calls or something that that you do regularly, you have as an appointment, and it takes something out of you. And then you say, okay, each time I finish with that, there's a buffer. Before I do the next thing, there's 5 minutes. So yeah.
And now you're habit stacking because you have that habit and then you stack a new habit on top of that. Now you're more likely to do it. And then I like to say, because it will make me feel. So now you are acknowledging what the benefit of doing this. Because again, like our brains are wired for negativity. Negativity is like Velcro. Positivity is like Teflon. So you have to, again, remind yourself of like, why am I doing this? What is this for? And so that's important when you put that together.
Love that. Okay. Well, I am really excited because the next thing we're talking about is the mezzo.
Yes. Mezzo breaks, mezzo rest. All right. So this is, again, those overachievers, those people that don't like to step away from the work because they don't think that they have time. You're going to struggle for this. Before I get into it, I want to tell you a stat. This is based off of inventors. So inventors, their sort of measure of success is patents. So if you're inventing things, you have to put patents because you have to protect your intellectual property. And they found that inventors that had hobbies produced 3 times more patents than inventors that didn't have hobbies. I will repeat that again. Inventors that had hobbies produced 3 times more patents than those that didn't. So you might be thinking to yourself, how is that? Why is that? So there's a lot that goes on. So I will get back to that in a moment. Let's talk about what a mezzo break is. A mezzo break is when you actually step away from the work to do something else. The big wish, the thing to aim for is a sabbatical, and a long extension from the work. However, it could be a full day off, a vacation, something where you're not working. But since we're talking about baby steps, maybe it's 3 hours on a Friday.
Ooh, yeah, like doing that half-day Friday thing.
Mm-hmm. Half-day Friday. You cut out 3 hours early, and then you go and do something that is going to rejuvenate you. Going back to the hobbies, it's one of these things they call the vacuum effect. If you don't have something to fill it, you're probably going to fill it with negative stuff or the stuff that you're used to. So think about it, like what else, because I remember I was working with someone and he's like, oh yeah, all right, I'll put it. And he put it in his calendar. And then when he had nothing. And so he ended up working. I'm like, what are you doing? Oh, I'm working. I was like, you're not supposed to be working. Well, I'm working on something else. And it was just like, he was honest with himself. He had nothing. So again, you need to have something to fill it with. And so like, what is something that sparks joy? What is something that is going to make you more curious? And go do that. Or maybe, especially if you are, someone that has a family and parents, maybe you spend time with your kids. You're like, hey, I'm going to use these 3 hours to just have quality family time or whatever. As long as you're not working, you're stepping away. So getting back to these inventors with the patents, the way that our brains works, our brain's always working on the stuff. If you don't think that you're working on, the stuff that is sort of keeping you up at night, your brain's working on it. It's working. It's in the background. It's there.
Mm-hmm.
Trust the process. And so these inventors that had hobbies, by them just engaging in something other than their work, they're making connections. Think about the last time you had a big aha. It probably wasn't when you were trying to. It's probably in a place like the shower, or you were out for a run, or you out lunch, or you were doing some network, something like that.
Oh, yeah. I mean, either the shower or like taking a drive. I solve all the world's problems then.
And so that is why they were able to be that much more successful, because they were doing something else. Their brain was still working on it, but then they had these connections. And then also, if you're mixing in some networking, Steve Jobs, the late great Steve Jobs, he would want to connect with so many different types of people, like carpenters and construction people, and just talk and listen to them. And when you hear things from a different perspective, sometimes that will give you a spark of inspiration. And so that's what I'm excited about, that type of rest. One, because it gives you space to do the things that spark joy. So again, because I'm the play guy, so most people are like, oh, well, what do I do? All right, well, in the book Play by Dr. Stuart Brown, he talks about different play personalities. There happens to be 9 of them. And you can explore those and use that as inspiration for what you potentially could do. I had one person that I was working with after some discovery and whatnot. She did not want to go collect dolls because that's what she did when she was younger. But she found when she unpacked that, what the essence of what she was doing was she loved nurturing. Again, this was mid-pandemic, so her other play personality was the explorer, so she couldn't travel. And so she started collecting succulents and she started nurturing them. So now she's starting to activate something that is very familiar with her, how she used to play when she was younger. So there's like a nostalgia act of it. And like I think by the end of the pandemic or when things started opening back up again, I said independent, it's still going on. But anyways, she had like over 200 and something succulents.
And there you go. So I like that you're bringing up an example like this because I have questions. Nobody's shocked about that. Which is that, so where things overlap and where we can like get things on a technicality, right? And it's not even from the devil's advocate kind of place where we're trying to say, well, what technically constitutes play? Going back to your definition of, regardless of the outcome, that it brings you joy, I'm wondering where the moments of self-care fall into this. So for example, and so this is one of those like tips/questions because this is how I approach things. I love approaching a week with themes. And so Tuesday is my self-care day. So that automatically builds in I don't do work. Or if I do, it would be in the evenings because I do have some clients, across the country, across the pond, or who work during the day and need an evening session. But the whole day is free for me to pack in different kinds of activities and things. And I absolutely make sure that I do things that like nourish me and bring me joy. Some of it can be a little more practical. That's when I'm going to do doctor's appointments or things like that. So what's your take on that sort of sliding scale of all those things and where play falls in?
I love this. Yes. The fact that you have it built into your schedule is awesome. The main thing here is the point about the mezzo break is that you step away from the work.
Mm-hmm.
You put the work aside. And I love that you have a day, dedicated for that. And I tell people like, all right, if you don't like the word play, all right, let's rename it self-care. The goal here is that you're nourishing yourself. You're doing the things that are going to bring joy, that are going to allow you to rejuvenate so that when you get into the work, you are more focused. This is sustainable. Again, because we're trying to make an impact. You cannot make an impact if you do not give yourself a place to recover.
Exactly. I came up with the phrase when you were describing earlier, that we don't need to work in order to deserve the rest. And I wrote, just rest to be your best, right? And so there you go, right? You heard it here first, folks. Okay. So with that in mind, I mix and match on that day. And some of it, that's also a de-stressor because it's like, okay, I got those appointments out of the way. I got to go do this thing. And some of it's practical and some of it's luxurious. And some of it's just a mix and match of like, I wanted to get some of these things done, but it has nothing to do with work. It's just other stuff. But I make sure that it's not just a day full of, I'm momming and, grocery shopping and whatever. Although there are aspects of joy for me, like being able to nourish myself and my family by cooking or meal planning or whatever. So there's things, and I kind of just play with it. There's the word, I'm flexible with it and just giving yourself that flexibility. Like, okay, I love that you said we don't have to define it. I didn't want that word play to ever make people think, I have to start learning how to hula hoop. Like, what does that mean exactly? You can, but it doesn't have to be. For me, it's literally picking up my guitar or picking up a book or something like that, or just mellowing out, or honestly, napping. I'm all about the napping. Yeah, just all of it. All of it's good, but you're taking that more extended break to do it.
Yes. And one thing, regarding sort of play and the mix and matching and stuff like that. What is something that, sparks joy? And that's why I love that there are so many different play personalities, because play is very personal. One person's form of play or style of play is not always the same thing. I was working with someone whose parents grew up during the Great Depression. They grew up across the pond in England. And so like sort of traditional, sort of rough and tumble and sort of a lot of the sort of kid play of like just goofing off was not acceptable. They're a very serious family. And so she came up to me. She's like, I don't think I played at all. And so then I went through the different play personalities and we got to the storyteller. And with the storyteller, if that's your play personality, you like to go deep and sort of lose yourself in movies and books and maybe drama. Like if you like, acting and stuff like that. And she had an aha. She's like, oh, I love to read. And she just went off. And you can tell when you hit something because she just lit up. And it was just like all this sort of joy. And I said, all right, there we go. That was play for you. Mm-hmm. You can do it, just for the sake of doing it. You lose yourself in it. So once she understood that, like it again blew everything wide open for her because she realized she did play. It just wasn't the type of play that maybe we're used to.
Yeah, I think that's such an important point. And so your takeaway for today, right, is think about what play is to you, what that would mean to you. And it just goes back to that whole idea of something that is nourishing you. It's giving you joy. It's just flat out fun. It's something that takes you away from all the other stuff, all the worries and the focus. Okay, this feels like a really amazing place for us to wrap up. Does that sound good to you?
I love it.
Great. Then please tell us where we can find you online, where we can find your book, all that.
Yes. All right. So if listening to this, you got curious and you're like, oh, wow, tell me more. You could go to my website, breakthroughplay.com. I do have a book out. It is Playful Rebellion, Maximize Workplace Success Through the Power of Play. I go into the different types of rest. I talk about, again, how you can rebel against the status quo using play. You can find that on my website, or you can go to playfulrebellion.com. If you want to ask me questions, I am on the socials. Name's Gary Ware, so you can find me on LinkedIn, Instagram. Those are the places where I play the most, but I am on all the others as well.
What stays with me most from Gary's message is that reframe he offered early on. We don't work to rest. We rest so we can do the best possible work. For a lot of us, it rewrites a story we've been carrying for a long time, one we've been chatting about on the podcast for a long time as well. You don't have to earn your rest. He also reminded us that rest is personal. What actually restores you is what matters. And as a gentle reminder, your joy list is a great place to start if you haven't already explored that. You can request it for free at positivelyproductive.com/resources. You want to look for the productivity toolkit. The joy list workbook is one of a number of workbooks in there to help you learn all about how you work best. The next episode picks up where this one leaves off, focusing on the practical side of building rest into your real life in the ways that actually work for you. And until then, keep making space for what matters most. And remember, that includes you. Thank you for joining me today. Your time is precious, and I'm honored you chose to spend it with me. I hope this episode inspired you, and I encourage you to think about one action you can take based on today's topic. Then share it with me so I can cheer you on. Go to positivelyproductive.com to connect with me, read blog posts, and access links from each episode and download resources.